welcome to the show. I am so excited to introduce psychic medium Nicole Newman, who is also the owner of Love of Avery Kind. Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thank you for having me, Courtney. I'm really super excited to be here. Thanks a lot for the invitation.
Oh, you're welcome. So we talked briefly about why I had asked you to come on the show. You've been working with the spirit world for several years, and you have a really unique story about how you began to work with spirit. But I'm wondering, before we kind of delve into that, if you wouldn't mind talking about your early years of awareness of the spirit world.
Sure, that'd be great. Well, honestly, I was aware of the spirit world when I was very young, a child, and spirit came to me in a bit of a different way, where I was always astral projecting and going all over the place as a child.
Wow.
I couldn't put my head on that pillow before we were gone, and it was a massive variety of experiences and preempted. I won't go into a long story about it, but it was very much zipping around the universe, learning, doing, all kinds of things, and in communication with many different levels of life, I guess I'm going to call it. So that was bizarre for me as a kid. And I was then aware in my regular day, oh, look at that. I can hear them teaching me to read. Like, I was fully fluent in reading before I went to kindergarten, because I would sit on the couch, and if I couldn't get a word in my Dr. Seuss book, they'd go, it's this, And so
wow.
I know. So I went to kindergarten. I was like, this is so great. I finally get to go to school. And it was super boring, because I already knew the entire curriculum inside and out. So it was an interesting experience. It went on throughout my life, and I had varying degrees of experience with it, sometimes frightening, sometimes wonderful, but really it was a blessing, and it was sort of my world, my private little world. And then when I was 11, I went to this Christian camp just down in Washington State, there in Camp Furwood. And I think I was 11, maybe I was 12. Anyway, I was drawn to go, and these kids I knew were going, and spirit was like, you should go. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go. So I went. And in that experience, they ask you to open your heart to God and open your heart to love. And I was like, okay, and can you commit to giving your whole life to God and to Jesus? I was a little perplexed what that meant, my entire life, but then they just said, they made me feel a little more comfortable with it by just saying, committing to living your life through love. And so I did this. And when I did it, it was like fireworks, explosion. My heart just burned and opened super wide to the love of God and to the divine love source that we all come from. And so in that, I realized, oh, those voices that were scaring me are not scary. That's just a bit of a lower life form, actually, some of it. Like, that wasn't all my dead family. It was all kinds of things going on.
Yeah.
And then I realized, the collective and the oneness of all of us. So this kind of went on for a couple of days at this camp with me. I was in this spiritual experience, and we were all sitting around the fire one night. I could hear the forest. I could hear everything talking. Everything was communicating with me. Absolutely everything. It was magical. And I didn't want to talk to any more kids, because that was just bringing me back here. And I was not into it. I was like, no, I'm good. I'm staying over here in this like zone. And then the fire, the band, he's playing guitar and we're singing Kumbaya, and the energy is building and building and building. And I'm like, and I was in such a state of awe, appreciation, gratitude for God. And I just had to stand up and give a standing ovation to God. But I stood up in my spirit, and my spirit stood up, and my Kundalini opened at that moment, and shocked me. And my little spirit guide said, don't worry about it, it's your Kundalini. And I was like, what? And he said, Carl Jung. I'm like, oh, okay, like, you'll figure it out later, and I was like, okay. And in that moment, when I got up, I looked around, and I could see like 7 or 8 other kids having the same experience. I could see their souls like 40 feet high, just like mine was at that moment, and we're in a camp of 200 kids or something. And then I could hear the collective, and I could hear the sea of souls, like all of these people talking to me and conspiring for my higher good, and saying thank you, and all of this. I was like, wow, what, this is beyond my scope. So wonderful experience. And it carried me through all the tough times in my life. I'm going to say, when things got really difficult on planet Earth, as they do, I was like, well, we come from more. There is a lot more than what I am seeing today in front of my face and in my tears. So I was always able to kind of manage and go forward from that. And it's not like I got into doing it at that time. I just continued on my life, really tried to keep my commitment to God, to that aspect of my life. But didn't have a big understanding of the spirit world, had never had anybody explain to me what it was, had no, I knew that I was kind of psychic. Like I understood that I was gathering information all the time that wasn't being told to me and that I would get ahead, but I was, not really that into it or anything. And then as time went on, I just realized how much I was using it in my business and everything, using my intuition. But then when people started to pass, then I became much more aware of it. And I started to realize, oh, wow, I'm having communication here. This is happening. And so this went on. And I didn't really get into it wholeheartedly. I mean, my brother passed and I pursued a lot of mediumship and communicated with him a lot, but didn't become a medium at that time. I just had some mediumship, personal mediumship going on, right? And then when my son passed, that was it. I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Crash the game. I don't care about all this other stuff anymore. I'm just going to focus on this. And the way it happened for me, of course, is I was, am I talking too much?
Keep going. I love your story. Keep going. It's fascinating.
Well, anyways, when he passed, of course, it was like the worst thing I could ever imagine because he was such a powerful being. He was autistic. And he was high functioning autistic, and he had won a medal for Team Canada in the Special Olympics in Korea that year. And I mean, he was just amazing. And he had come through so much because he had had a lot of difficulties with his anxiety and with his autism. And what I was aware of actually in his life was that he was in communication with the spirit world. And so I wasn't really in communication with the spirit world yet. Like I was aware of it and I knew that I had had this type of communication, but I could see him talking and then, not wanting to talk about it and keeping it to himself. And, I'd question him about it once in a while. And he'd often come up with little psychic things. And I'd be like, did somebody just say that to you? Because, I kind of know what that is, right? And he never got too far on it. It was always just like, no. He didn't want to, go any further with it, so we just left it. But anyway, he was very gifted in that way, and he really was aware of much else. And there was a book I read once about autism. I was a lot younger when I read it, long before I had Avery, but it was about it was a mother who wrote the story about her daughter who'd been autistic and saying that it's kind of like your soul is always trailing behind your body. You're not quite grounded. You're not quite in your body. You're not really able to stay put, And so you're in between both worlds all the time. And I had that experience so many times as a kid. I'd be just sitting in the kitchen. I mean, I was astral projecting like religiously, like all the time, but then I'd be just sitting in the living room and all of a sudden I'm like, no. And I'd be like up and it'd be this conversation going on. And I was like, oh my God, like this is freaking me right out, right? So it was, but it was always like I was a little kid and that was an adult conversation going on between a higher aspect of myself and people in the spirit world, and I wasn't really involved in it. I just somehow managed to grasp it and catch on to it. So he was having experiences like that and being ungrounded. So I knew that the best way to get through it is to ground yourself, which means exercise, like nonstop.
Yeah.
So that's what we had done with him, and he exercised a lot and he became a really good skier as a result, and went on to go to the Special Olympics. But so anyway, I knew he was having similar experiences, and he managed through it, and he got past that anxiety stage and got really grounded and really had a good run there of good living for a long time. And that's a huge long story about the pursuit of peace in autism. It's a deal there. But anyway, so when he passed, I couldn't believe it because I was like, how could this happen? Like, he is just so powerful and amazing. And I just can't believe this happened. Like, not him. He's like a superstar, he had overcome so much that I just couldn't believe it, but I realized that it couldn't really, I don't know if other people have this experience when a child dies, but I think many do. And that's you kind of don't really believe it. You believe it. So you're going to wake up one day and they're still going to be alive, or they're going to come back, or I'm going to pursue this. I know he's here with me. I can feel him, and I'm going to see him standing right there. Like this sort of feeling of it almost is going to, mediumship's going to take it away. It's going to heal it. And it does heal it a lot. I mean, I'm sure I would be just not the person I am today if I didn't have mediumship, but it doesn't bring them right back into your presence. It brings them into your awareness and into your spiritual presence and energetic world, right? So so I just immediately, when he passed, began to sit. I mean, I hadn't been sitting, but I just began to sit and meditate and just beg and like, please come, right? Like, I'm either coming back out, right? I don't need to die, but I can certainly astral project. I know I can do this if I can get my head around it again, or you need to come here, And so it was amazing, because I would just be sitting and then I would feel the energy shift in the room, and I would feel a vibration on my system, and I would feel communion with my son, and I'm like, oh my God, thank God. Like, I knew he existed, of course, but I could feel him physically in my presence. Not see him. So this is so I used to go to my room and meditate like that, like 3 or 4 or 5 times a day. We both needed it, and it was the way we were able to get through it. And if I didn't do it, I would start to feel really bad, like, oh my God, like anxiety. And I knew Avery needed me to come and connect with him. I needed it. And so we did that, and we got through it. And when I say through it, we got through the really intense aspects of it, and proved to myself over and over again, okay, he exists, we're here, we're together still, let's move forward, let's start opening up this aspect of life, right? And started training and going to Arthur Findlay and doing all that. Right away, I went online one day and Arthur Findlay popped up. Don't ask me how. I mean, I must have, I was searching something. And I was like, oh, look at that. And then off I went. And
Nicole, for those of the listeners that don't know what who Arthur Findlay is, or the Arthur Findlay College, maybe could you just share with them what that is?
Sure. Arthur Findlay College is a huge building in Stansted, England, so not too far from London. Arthur Findlay was the founder of it, and him and his wife donated it to the Spiritualist Union to continue the pursuit of afterlife communication and knowledge and education. It had originally been used as it's a huge brick building. It's absolutely gorgeous. There's still horses nearby. It was used for all kinds of things over the years, and it's a really special place where people gather from all over the world. Great teachers, I would say, the highest standard in the world. Generally. Arthur, I mean, not that there's not amazing teachers over here in Canada and America, there certainly is. But that level of spiritualist training and environment that goes with it. It's like going to summer camp, Hogwarts. You're in full immersion. It's a wonderful experience. I absolutely love it. And I
go in September. I'm excited.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. Well, I haven't been in a few years now since COVID, right? But I know going often. I was going like a lot at that time in my life. I was going back and forth a lot. And really just immersed my whole life into it for a few years of doing that training and sitting in the power, sitting on my couch, communing with spirit and my higher self, right? And really learning aspects of myself, which, I think our pursuit of mediumship is part of our evolution, for a lot of people anyway. And I really believe that our purpose in life is really to understand yourself and your soul and love yourself, but also understand how big and vast we are and what we're capable of, and have more knowledge of ourselves. So
absolutely
do that.
You said something that was interesting, and I just wanted to touch on it. So, your early spiritual experiences, and then with the unfortunate passing of your son, you knew that he wouldn't be there physically, but you had this awareness, and I'm going to say you had this knowledge that there was still his essence that was still very much alive. And, I see this particularly in people that are seeking out mediumship development, but when they are in such the depths of grief, it's such a dense energy. It can be hard for them to shift their awareness, to
Yes.
raise their vibration, to be able to make that connection with the other world. Do you think some of your earlier experiences with the collective, with the universe, with the spirit world were able to help you through some of those early stages of the grief process, so you were able to make those connections and have communication with your son?
100%. And excellent observation for you bringing that up, because obviously we can't really connect very well when we're in a really heavy vibration. And often people would say that to me, you shouldn't be here so soon. This is too soon. It's not healthy for you. And I was like, this is all I got. And believe me,
Yeah.
I'm not even, nobody's making me leave. But I really, and I truly believe that, because I know now when we want to get into that state, or into the power that we call it, we
Yeah.
need to elevate our emotions. We need to rise our energy. We need to find joy. I mean, you can go towards love, go towards joy, go towards an elevated emotion that's going to rise our energy up and allow us to make that bridge. And it's really hard when you're in grief.
Yeah.
But one of the ways that definitely helped me, my experiences as a kid, and also I was actually very grateful really quickly in the process, because I needed so much to reach out and to feel Avery and to know he was there and to have it confirmed. I mean, I had a medium person I knew, and I called her right away and had a reading fairly quickly also. And at that stage, he was still really trying to get used to being on the other side. It wasn't particularly awesome or anything, but it was what it was. It was communion, and we're making it. And we're, I could see my father was with him, and there was progress in the ability to communicate. So it gave me hope and made me know I had gratitude and gratefulness to Avery, to my spirit family, to God, to help me in this experience to make that gap. And just knowing that that's who we are as human beings. We live eternally, and we continue on. I had so much gratitude for that realization, remembering of that aspect, that it really helped me kind of be able to elevate myself. But I mean, it's not like I was doing mediumship. I was there to get readings, right? I mean, I was there to it didn't matter where I was, my people were the contact because I had so much need, right? So I was getting readings all day long at Arthur Findlay, even though all I could say was, it's a man, like that. I was not doing mediumship. There's no question. I was just in the environment, immersing myself in the environment, trying to do mediumship, trying way too hard, and desperately needing connection to my own son. So it was a great place to be. I had a wonderful, the first time I went there, I sat under the tulip tree at Arthur Findlay. And I always go down to the village in the morning and get a real cup of coffee and walk back. And I was sitting there before, class started. And my grandfather came and it just opened up, because Avery wasn't really ready to communicate yet. It was still quite early, and he was learning, right? And so it's not like, boom, they're all, it's all varied. Everybody's having a different experience on this side.
Thank you for sharing that. I'll let you, sorry, I just want to quickly interrupt, because some people think when they go for a reading, especially after their loved one has recently passed, they think that their loved ones know how to come through and work through a medium. And it doesn't work that way. And so I'm so glad you touched on that, because people think, well, they're on the other side, they know everything. They're not. They're still the same people. And they've just released that physical vessel, that shell, if you will. And they have to figure out the mechanics of communication on how to work through a medium. So I love that you touch on that, because there is this misconception of how the other world talks to us.
So true. So true. And my grandfather had been gone for a long time, and he was quite a spiritual man. And so he, I'm sure, foresaw all this, and he had it dialed, right? So he came through every chance at Arthur Findlay and then would say, I've got the boy, and the boy would, try to say something, but he came through directly to me under the tree. And as I was like crumbling and, just being like, God, I can't remember everything about our childhood, and he reminded me and showed me my relationship with him as a very young child. And it just opened that all up and brought me back all my memories, which was just an unbelievable experience to just sit and have that happen. And I gotta say, I did nothing in that moment. I just sat and drank my coffee, and the spirit world brought that to me as a gift to help me understand and plus I love my grandfather so dearly. So this was like a great communion for me and him, which we had never had either, right? Because I had not been pursuing mediumship when he passed. So, yeah. So, but it's so true. We need to just understand that this is an imperfect science, and that everybody's got to blend their energy, and not every medium matches every deceased person, and they need to. Avery's really figured it out now. He's an excellent communicator, and people love to work with him. And he works with people when I'm teaching mediumship. I'll get him to, people that are having a hard time with it, I'll say, okay, look, and then we'll start in and go with Avery, right? And it's amazing what they can pick up, and he brings great joy because he's a joyous person. And as I'm trying to, help people raise their own level of joy for what they're doing, it seems to help ignite that communication and open up that channel, right? So. Like
how beautiful is that? Our loved one, your son, our loved ones, your son still can come back and still have an impact, very much a positive one on the earth plane. It's incredible. And, you really have shared so much about the healing aspects of mediumship. And when I first started sitting in a closed circle in the early years of my development, my mentor always said from the get-go, mediumship's all about healing. Yes. It's about healing for you. It's about healing for those in the other world. And it's really all about service. If people want to develop their mediumship, even just to expand their own awareness, it's a game changer, and it really helps you perceive the world and others in it quite differently. And you recognize that you all are these intrinsic threads that weave together to make up the whole. It's beautiful. Wow, you've got a great story. I love it. It's fabulous. And I love how since we've been chatting in the beginning, it's all been centered around love. And I love how you have now named your center, which I'd love to talk about, Love of Every Kind. How did you come up with that name, and how did you decide this is the next step in my journey?
Good question. Well, I had no intention of opening a center, like zero, but I don't know if you know Shanley Gibson. She used to work out of that center. She rented it for 3 years, and she's, I don't know, she's doing something else now. But I had gone there many times for meditations and for mediumship, and I was there. Tony Stockwell was there. She was hosting Tony Stockwell, and I was there in class learning mediumship. And all of a sudden I could just feel spirit starting, like, what are you doing getting rid of this place? I don't think that's a good idea. Like, I mean, what do you really need to get rid of this place? And she's like, I'm moving on. And I'm like, well, I think then, maybe. And so I asked my husband, what do you think? I think we should do this. And we had, we're not teaching mediumship. We're just learning mediumship at the time. We're not doing that. Right. So I just kind of sat with that. And the way I do most things is I sit with the idea and I wait and see how it feels. And if it feels like this is the right idea. Anyway, it was very clear that it was what I should do, right? It was the right idea. It was a good move for me. And it was fantastic. So, it kept me rooted in the work and opening up development circles for people and renting out the space to other mediums and hosting teachers from Arthur Findlay and having them come there, which eventually turned into online because of COVID, right? So, doing more online than anything since COVID. But the name, I knew it had to have love in it because Avery has such powerful love. I mean, they say autistic people are emotionless, and he was not that way. He was very loving. Every single day of my life, he told me he loved me. every day, and he was just a very loving person. So, the biggest thing to get used to was his energy not being so profoundly in my home, because he lived with me. And it was really strong, very strong energy. And I really noticed it after he went. Oh, wow, that's a gap. You would know if he was home, even if you didn't know he was home. Let's put it that way. And so I wanted it to have love and Avery in it. And so I put it out there to a bunch of mediums I knew and just said, why don't you come up with a name for my center? And I'm just, throw it in the pile. And a girl, Sarah Martuzzi, came up with that name. And I just, that's the one, that's it. So I did not come up with it on my own, but I was like, in the vicinity, just coming up with the concept and the words that had to have love and Avery in it, but and then that's how it happened. So yeah.
Beautiful. So if you could let our listeners know what sort of programs and training is available at your center. And then also, I'm curious because I want to know, how did you get hooked up with some of these well-known, reputable, quality tutors, and many of them from the Arthur Findlay College?
Yeah. Well, in my life prior to pursuing mediumship wholeheartedly, I was a sales rep, distributor, entrepreneur. I had a business for 25 years selling sporting goods products in Canada to stores, like wholesaler, So that was my, career up until a little while after Avery passed. I just lost all interest. So I was like, I got to put this away. I can't keep using that side of my brain right now. And so I had that sort of marketing knack anyways. I was kind of that way, and just a lot of communication, being in sales, and I was communicating. I got to know people just from going to Arthur Findlay College, right? And got to know different teachers and developed relationships with them. And then just started, to be honest, when, I was hosting people to come, and I had Lynn Probert lined up to come, and COVID hit, and Tony had already been coming a few times, and I'd had him on my schedule. But anyway, so how it happened is COVID hit, and I had people scheduled to come just through developing that relationship with them. And then when COVID hit, Barrett was like, you should call in, see if she wants to go online. You should call her. And I was like, that's an interesting thought. She's going to think I'm a nut, right? She's like, no, what's 2 weeks to flatten the curve? I was just like,
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, don't believe that. You're an idiot if you believe that, right? They were just like, yeah, no. All right. So I was like, oh, so anyway, like most things, don't always know you're being inspired by spirit, but you just can't get the thought out of your mind, and I was like, oh, right. You guys are trying to tell me something. Okay, fine, I'll do it. So then I emailed her and expected her to, not want to do it. And instead she was like, let's do it. Great. So we did. And that, we ran for a year and a half working often, many classes a month throughout a year and a half of COVID. And we will be offering more classes later in this year as well. But
lovely.
Yeah. So just talking, communicating.
Yeah. Which is, wonderful that you've created this network, and life is all about relationships. And if you were in sales, you very much will know that too. It really is a testament to have these quality of mediums working out of your center. And it really speaks about your intentions and about the high standards that you have for love of every kind. So everybody go check this place out. So I had another question for you. You have a lot of students that come in and out of your doors that you either work directly with, or you have a tutor that is a guest tutor that's coming in. What are some of the most common fears that you see in people that are just beginning to develop their mediumship, or mediums that have kind of hit a plateau and they don't really know how to work through that?
Yes, good question. Okay. So, I really think when we're first starting, our biggest fear is to be wrong, we're trying to prove the afterlife, and we're going to prove there is no afterlife because we're so wrong. We're going to misrepresent the spirit world. We're going to be spreading misinformation. We're going to hurt somebody, that's what I was like, gosh, I was coming from a place of deep pain, obviously. So the last thing I wanted to do was, it was so sacred and so healing for me to have the gift of mediumship and to have that connection. And it helped me from, just kept on raising me back up into life, right? Every little step I took. So what I did know is if somebody said something wrong, it crushed me. It was me and Avery were both like, oh God, they got that wrong about me. It sounds terrible, but you're in such an emotional state that you are fragile and your energy is really open, right? So it can hurt you, and people can be wrong, and there can be things that happen, and so you don't want to be that person. You don't want to ever hurt somebody. You don't ever want to misrepresent. And so I feel, for me, that was my biggest holdback. I was blending, I was sitting, I would only say the things that were super safe, like it's unbelievably your father, like, yes, right? But I would never go further, for the longest time. I would go, well, and that's it. And things would be running through me. All kinds of information's running through me, and I'm just not speaking it. I'm not saying it out loud, right? And I'm afraid. So, finally, when you just, I finally got past it one day because I decided I didn't care anymore, and I was just going to say it because I was partnered with somebody who had really annoyed me for some reason. And I was like, well, I'm just going to say it then. I mean, Spirit did this to me to help, this is my personality, and so I was like, well, I don't care if I hurt feelings. I'm just going to come right out with it then. This is what's going on internally in my process. Yeah. And I'm like, bah, 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 bah. And she's like, right. And I'm like, I am? Oh, okay, well then, and then more started coming, and it was just so there. And I was like, oh, what a gift. They found a way to make me not so afraid of hurting someone's feelings, literally. Like that's what it means. So my advice to people would be, I think people should have, pep talk in the class beforehand and say, you've got to give each other space to be wrong. And this is where we're going to be wrong. This is how we're going to be wrong. Not when you're later in a paid reading, and when you're with somebody who's truly bereaved, you got to do it here. So giving people the permission to get it wrong, and for them to say, I'm going to just step out on a limb here and put my toe in the water, and each time you do that, it gets easier and easier and easier. And the other thing is, you tie yourself up in a knot by being so stressed about having to because we're so worried about having to perform, right? And we need to look at this as a gift from God. It's our God-given right. This is who we are. As people, we're allowed to have this type of communication, and we need to find joy in that every day, and to be, ready to look at it as a fun game. I mean, I started making jokes like, we're going to go play our fun game. Let's go, just making it fun. This is going to be our fun game to go do mediumship, and bringing that joy into it. And that helps your inhibitions and, give you an easier chance to just speak your mind and that kind of thing. So those two things I think really help. And the other thing, of course, is try to stay out of your left brain. So there's a lot of ways you can do that. But, trying to just follow that thread. And when the thread is there, focus on it and don't let it slide. Just keep going towards it and just stay with the communicator and, allow these things to have their peace. But, I think we get so much instruction sometimes that it's overwhelming, and it can, almost we start left braining and thinking about everything and analyzing everything. And this makes it harder for us. So just let it be, let it flow, and know when you set the intention to do mediumship that it's going to meet you halfway. I mean, the spirit world really, when we do this, so they're going to come and participate and help out and do what they can to support you, and be grateful and joyful about it.
I love those tips, and those are foundational tips too. Give what you get, but give it from a place of love, and to enjoy what you're doing. If you're not having fun, don't do it. Enjoy it. It's the spirit world is coming in, and they're excited to work with us. They're excited to work through their medium. Meet them halfway, I love those tips. Those are wonderful, wonderful advice. Nicole, tell people where they can find you, how they can get in contact with you, and anything that you have upcoming that you
Sure.
want to share with the listeners.
Yeah, you can email me at Nicole or info@loveofaverykind.com. Often people think Avery is Every, but it's not. It's Avery, Avery. And the website's the same, loveofaverykind.com. I post things that we're doing on there. There's now sort of some stuff in studio and some stuff online. I'm teaching primarily online myself right now, and I'll do circles and dem circles and different things, spiritual development, which I actually think is a really important aspect for people that want to get into mediumship or are already into it, is really the more understanding of the self and our own energy bodies.
Yes.
Everything. This is so helpful for us. Opens up a lot of doors that the mediumship training doesn't necessarily talk about, right? But it is very helpful. And then in studio, and then I've got Tony Stockwell coming up May 24th and 25th, I think it is. So that's a 2-day trance class. Christine Morgan, who's an Arthur Findlay tutor, she's doing a Sunday a month with us, and that's a really interesting, intensive kind of program where it's all in the main room and online. And she works with each person, and you work through your mediumship sort of as her tuning into it with you. So very helpful. And I have other things coming up as well. A whole bunch of stuff with Tony throughout the year. And then in studio is Lynn Robinson, who's like a NLP, neuro-linguistic programming teacher. She's teaching some stuff there. So she just did an NLP intro class, and now she's doing a new perspective on you class in the middle of May, which is using NLP type concepts to help your life go in the way that you'd like it to. And then I've got some other mediums coming in to do a demonstration May 21st, and they're going to have a psychic fair, I think, somewhere around the end of June. I've got people doing oils, Reiki with their oils. Kelly Mallinson's doing that kind of thing. There's a bunch of different stuff going on. So, and mostly that's all local people, right? So local, mainland. And it's not always posted on my website because they do their own thing and take their own, but usually I'll put something out at some point if they send me a poster and send it out. And the studio's available if somebody wants to rent it for some kind of a light working practice. So
you're busy. You guys are busy there.
Yeah, we're busy. I mean, it's been really tough since COVID, to be honest. I used to be so busy there. I would put out my sign, go down there on a weekday, weekend, didn't matter. And I'd be busy all day doing readings, like just nonstop. And it's been slower, less people out, less, things are. So, but it's starting to get much better now. It's starting to pick up. So hopefully things turn right around.
Exciting. Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for coming on the show, sharing about your journey and sharing these mediumship tips to help the listeners. I appreciate you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Courtney. It's wonderful to be here. Okay.